Hi, my name's Scott Berman. I'm the owner with my family of SuperDawg Drive-In. My mom and dad, Maury and Flory, built SuperDawg in 1948. I grew up in Albany Park. My next door neighbor was then Bobby Surratt. Bobby and I and the rest of the guys on the block used to play ball together and hang out together. And Bobby had this idea when he was probably 12 and we were 10 that we would, after school, go down to the Stone Container Building where WLS had its studios. So we would go down there, and we weren't anybody in particular's fan club. We were everybody's fan club. We got to be good friends with the DJs, Dick Biondi, Bob Hale, Clark Weber, and they would give us their scripts from the radio shows each day, including commercial breaks and including their playlist. We would take that script, including the playlist and the commercials, and in my basement we would reenact the radio station. They would give us 45s, which we played on turntables and record players, of course, and we would tape these on Bobby's reel-to-reel tape deck, and we would play radio station. We were all the engineers and the backup personnel, and Bobby was the on-air talent. He was always the DJ because he knew that he was going to be a DJ when he grew up, and that's what he became. I remember all of the DJs, not only Dick Biondi and Bob Hale and Clark Weber. I remember they were all really nice guys. They weren't just nice guys because they were on the radio. They were nice guys to all of us kids. And while there would be a crush of people on weekends when we would sometimes go on Saturdays, on weekdays after school, there weren't that many kids. So we were there pretty much alone at the radio station at the Stone Container Building. So we would hang out for hours at a time in the late afternoon after school. And that's when we got to know them pretty well, got to know them as real people, not just as radio personalities. And that's when they would give us records, scripts, playlists, and we would talk about records and bands that were up and coming. So we sort of had the inside knowledge of what the radio station looked like, but also about the new up and coming bands, Jan and Dean, the Beach Boys, and then of course leading into the Beatles and the Rolling Stones. I was 10 years old. I was 10, 11, 12. Bobby was 12, 13. So we were pretty young. We were there liking the radio station, liking them, but still young fans, not yet dancing age. Bobby was one of the early people on WLS FM Bob Surratt, when WLS went FM, because FM wasn't around in 1960, but by 62, 63, 64, when Bobby got out of high school, went on to Columbia College, that's when WLS FM began, and that's when he became a DJ for WLS FM. My mother and father built SuperDawg in 1948 to put themselves through school. They were prom dates at Von Steuben High School. They met in Albany Park, and they met in high school. They were prom dates. My dad went to World War II and fought in the Battle of the Bulge. When he came back from World War II in 1948, 47, they got married, and they opened SuperDawg just to put themselves through school. They were students at Northwestern. Northwestern was then their neighborhood school, so they would take the L to Northwestern. My dad became a CPA. My mother became a teacher. They were only open in the summers of 48 and 49 to earn tuition to finish school. In 1950, I was born, and they graduated, and they decided that SuperDawg was more fun than accounting or teaching. So they continued SuperDawg then as a year-round thing. The SuperDawgs on the roof are actually paper mache. They were only intended to be up there for a couple of years, and then when they went year-round, they wrapped them in a new material called fiberglass. Fiberglass wasn't invented before the war, and they wrapped the paper mache in fiberglass, and those are the original dogs on the roof that were put up there 10 days before we opened in May of 1948. They've only been down 3 or 4 times in the entire 68-year history of SuperDawg to get a fresh coat of paint on them to keep them glistening and bright. The building is the original building. We've added some things to that, but the neon, the building, the sign, the dogs are all the original from 1948. And my mother was the first car hop. They designed it as a drive-in even then, and they knew that they wanted that whole drive-in personality. They put it here at the edge of the city. We're actually at the Niles-Chicago border, in the Chicago side of the Niles-Chicago border, but they intentionally put it out here at the edge of the city, hoping that people would drive out for a long country ride post-war, because during the war, people couldn't have cars. After the war, people all started buying cars and taking long country rides, and we were that long country ride destination to come to. The 45s were a wonderful way to listen to music. I remember the record players that we had and the reel-to-reel tape deck, but the 45s themselves were really this great sound that I remember on the record players. Sometimes we would put a little piece of plastic in the middle of it for the spindle, but most of the time we could just play those records, and we seldom played LPs because what we were getting from the DJs at WLS were the 45s, and then we had stacks of 45s on racks that we could pull off when we were reenacting the day of a radio station, and we had to have the 45s in a certain order so we could pull them off the rack and then put them on the dual record players. Thank you very much.